Welcome to another live episode of the Modern Lending Podcast. Today, though, man, if you stayed in tune for what we're doing in season 2, we just hit 4 episodes back to back to back on personal brand building. And so as we look forward, we're going to do 4 episodes on digital marketing. There's a difference. There's a difference to brand building and digital marketing. And one of the things local mortgage professionals don't understand is what's really going on in digital. A lot of you agree with me that the top of the sales cycle has become the internet. And man, we got to figure out what the big guys are doing and how that impacts you and what you need to be aware of. So I'm bringing on a killer guest, Alan Edgett, who currently is the 5-year CEO at the gig agency. But before that, this guy literally was one of the pioneers of creating digital marketing strategy. I mean, he worked as the senior director for online marketing and digital strategy for Experian for 5 years and done a ton of stuff. And if you've ever heard of freecreditreport.com, and this is the man behind the magic. So let's kick it off with Alan and get going on what really is happening in digital marketing.
With the real world.
All right, let's kick it off, Alan. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
It's always nice when I have like an Alec and an Alan. It just makes my life really easy because if anyone's watching and commenting, you can just say Alec or Alan and we're all good. Everyone else messes my name up, but Thanks for being here today.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
So we rapped about this for a little bit, and I want to kick it off with just a little bit of background on you so that everyone frames up what's going on, because there's been a gigantic shift to digital from a local mortgage professional. Like the local mortgage people are waking up, especially from COVID. I mean, COVID came in and was like, boom, wake up, you got to be digital. And it really put the pressure on. But what they don't know is that there's been this whole ecosystem and evolution in digital marketing for decades now. I mean, you've been in it for what? You said 23 years now?
Yeah, long time, late 90s.
But that's significant because there's been radical change on how we've targeted customers digitally in your lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. And radical change in how the consumer has been using the internet has caused all of that. So in the old days, for those of us old enough to remember, you started off with trying to find a website. That was just hard, and then Google came along and made it a little easier just to find a website. But over the years, things have changed. Not only have the mobile devices taken over from the desktop searches, or at least impacted that, the social channels were non-existent. And now are ways in which people express themselves, but also expect brands to express themselves. And that has put a lot of challenges and a lot of changes in digital. So it's pretty awesome.
Well, let's start here and go back in time a little bit. Your role at Experian. What were you doing with Experian? What was that like? How are you attracting customers? And what are we learning from this?
Yeah, so Experian was a fantastic shop. They had a lot of brands that were working, and they were really, really good at intercepting customers with advertisements and getting them to come over and sign up for their various products or services, or generating leads. A lot of people remember Lower My Bills in this space, or freecreditreport.com. They had a number of flagship sites. I think they're a great case study of the way it was. The big players were very good at interrupting your day with ads and getting you to come over and do something. That's changed a lot over the last 10 years, though. And now the game is different. You can't just cram ads down people's faces, and you can't just expect them to search you out in Google. Those places are still working, but they're very, very competitive. And so what's changed now is you need a better mousetrap, if you will. I call them honey pots because, like the old adage, you can, get a lot more flies with honey. You've got to build assets that people are attracted to these days. And that is probably in social, and it's probably in video. It's probably doing exactly what we're doing here today, creating content that people like to consume.
Well, so let's look at the history here a little bit. I mean, you mentioned you're just throwing ads at people's faces. So in the early days, you said that worked. So you would pay for an ad that would go on Yahoo or something, right? And people would go through.
Yeah. People would click through banner ads. Remember those? I mean, people actually thought they were interesting, and the whole ecosystems were built around banner ads. And you used to buy an ad for where it was placed. It was on Yahoo's finance page. That was a pretty important page on the internet. In around about 2008 or 9, myself, along a lot of people at Experian, and a lot of people in kind of the ad ecosystem started thinking about ways in which we could target people rather than the places they were on. And so what the game quickly changed into who had the most data was going to win. And so for the last really 15 years, it's all I've been focused on, aggregating data about consumers and trying to use it as a weapon to find where they're at before my competitors do.
So I want to just recap that, because you said it quickly and you're experienced in it. But for the layperson, you mentioned placing an ad on Yahoo's finance page was a great strategy. That was a place you would put targeted marketing there. People that would go there were hopefully your audience. You were thinking they're my audience, so put an ad there. And then the paradigm shift has been that is not as effective anymore, because I still see it done all the time.
Yeah.
But now it's how do I actually find my target audience in the wild, so to speak?
Right. And the key shift there to understand is, how has that consumer changed their behavior? All of us used to open up our desktops, primarily at work, and Yahoo would load first, or MSNBC, or pick your page. But today, what do? We wake up in the morning, we grab this device right by our bed. We shouldn't, but we do it. And we check our Twitter stream. We check our Instagram feed. We check our socials. We see what our friends in our community are telling us is important for that day. That's totally different. And so we, as brand marketers and as local folks, we need to be participating in that stream of information. And I use that word on purpose. I view the internet as a river. Yes. And we are all on that river at some point, and you're fishing in the river. That's what we're trying to do as advertisers. And so,
okay, so I want to start here, and this go right into the deep end, so to speak, because and I'll back this up for everybody listening, and I want to put the foundation in place here. The traditional way us local professionals were taught to hunt and fish was to go out and find the best realtors in our market. And, remember, the multiple listing services was private, so, you had to look at a newspaper, some garbage. So you'd find an agent, and they would be the top of the sales cycle, because they had the knowledge, they had the information, and they controlled massive amounts of consumer influence. Right. Now, to your point, and that was how we got business.
Right.
Still doing it today. The old playbook is dusty and still being used, but it's still relevant to a degree, except, to your point, consumer behavior has changed. The internet has allowed us to change. So what are the big players? The Quickens of the world, the loandepots of the world. What are they doing to use your analogy, which I friggin' love, to go up the river a little further,
right,
and start fishing? What are they doing?
So they're kind of, you can break it into two main tactics. They're fishing on the one hand. So what are the fishing tactics? Obviously, fishing they are very good at automating their processes. So they run ads at scale. That's what we help our clients do as well. So they are testing. At any given day, for our clients, we're testing 30, 40, 50 different ads a day. So that's very difficult to do. If you're a local professional, you don't have the time necessarily to do that. But that's what the big boys are doing.
There's knowledge there. I don't know skill set there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the color of the ad, who the person's in the ad, the copy of the ad, where the ad is placed, because the internet changes all the time. So is it on Instagram? Is it on TikTok? Is it on Twitter? Those types of things. So that's what the big boys are doing to fish, and they do it very, very efficiently. That's why, for example, LendingTree is in the position they're in. They just generate so much volume of leads that other people would have a hard time doing. Zillow is in the same boat on the real estate side. So that's tactic one. That's the fishing tactic. The other tactic they are trying to do, and this is where I think there's a lot of opportunity for local folks, and to your last 4 episodes, they haven't done a great job of building what I call dams on the river. And that is your brand. That is some place that consumers want to come to. And then you control them. Now, Zillow has a wonderful dam in that they have all those houses there, and consumers go there. But not a lot, even Quicken and even a lot of the big mortgage companies, Loan Depot included, have had a hard time figuring out what dam would make sense. And a lot of local or smaller groups have actually been producing shows, producing content, building websites, building places on social channels that are more interesting and more compelling places to learn about mortgage. And that is a huge shift and an awesome asset for the firm.
So, but I want to talk about scale of what this means, because you said some numbers earlier on freecreditreport.com, which all of us remember. It was a huge marketing thing. It hit everybody in the face. What was kind of the spend looking like, and what was the actual result? Like, how many people were bumping into this and paying? I mean, I want the impact of this kind of stuff to land on people here.
Yeah. To this day, and in the very large lead gen world, hundreds of thousands of paid signups a month is not uncommon. Well, yeah, it's very large, but it's not like it's one company. There's multiple companies, insurance, credit,
of course,
things like that. Yeah. So And they're spending hundreds of millions a year to do that as well.
Yeah. But I wanted to kind of get the scale through because, a loan officer who is trying to serve their community just needs to kind of have their eyes opened a little bit into what is really happening at the top of the sales cycle. And these companies are trying to build dams. I use the analogy of baseball and having at bats.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, you would be insane to think that Quicken isn't getting better.
Oh,
like that's stupid. And because they've been doing this for a long time now, and every time they get at bats, they get stronger. They learn different techniques. Their salespeople get better. The same thing I say with Zillow all the time. Everyone's like, "Oh, they're mortgage companies bumbling around," and I'm like, "They're getting at bats,
mm-hmm.
and at bats they get better."
Yeah, one of the powerful things about once you build a dam, like Zillow has done, is even if you're not very good at monetizing that dam or fishing off that dam, for now, you can get better and improve because you control that traffic. And so controlling your own brand, controlling your own traffic, if you can, is the most important thing you can do. And otherwise, you're going to be dependent upon the lending trees of the world, the Zillows of the world to generate your traffic.
So let's talk more about the dam concept. Mm-hmm. So I think people are understanding, okay, there's a river of opportunity. There's customers flowing through it. We understand where you put your fishing line matters. Right. But the dam concept, go in a little bit deeper on what that means, how someone should understand that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not on, if you're not a big user of social media, I would encourage you to try to follow along, even if TikTok might seem a strange place to think about mortgage, because what you will notice in the sea of consumers just creating content are some very clever brands who are starting to create channels of content that are compelling in different categories. Yes. And so if a brand is able to establish, let's say in our industry, mortgage, a place where edutainment, educational, entertaining content is being constantly produced, it is going to create a dam, and people are going to stop by that page. They're going to comment on that page. They're going to share that page with their friends and family. And sooner or later, that brand is going to get bigger and bigger and control the mortgage space, in that channel. Could be TikTok, could be Instagram, could be YouTube, wherever that might be. And so, so that's the concept of a dam. Build something that people will find compelling and come back to and stick around with. Probably going to be on social media. Although Clubhouse, for example, is a newer channel where it's audio only. It's very interesting. It's like this, what we're doing here on podcasting, but it's kind of one to many. So it's all these things in digital, they keep coming up. So if you've missed the boat on Instagram, it's all right, because there's always a new thing that you can maybe Clubhouse is more your style of talking rather than posting pictures, things like that.
So let's unpack what a local pro can do, because we kind of just drew some of the guidelines up and we said, hey, look, Zillow created this amazing dam, right? Like people want to go, they want to see houses. They created a place that people have an app on their phone. It's worth that much of my time that people will do that.
Right.
And then, but they also have huge budgets. They've got investor backing. They're public. They got a lot of opportunity there. Mm-hmm. What can a local person do?
Tons. We have a lot of clients that are both realtors and loan officers. So, it can be, I always tell our clients, first figure out what is it that you are an expert in? How are you going to fish? That's slightly different. Maybe you're the kind of person that really likes, you're a handyman, you really like homes, you really like home inspections. You don't mind talking about cracks in the concrete or how to judge a backyard. That's your thing. Get on video, show yourself opening the house, inspecting the house, or whatever. Maybe your thing is more financial. Maybe if you're a loan officer, you're really, knowledgeable about, the differences between FHA and conventional, how you can get, different folks to different places. Share that knowledge. Pick a thing you think you're really good at, and then share that knowledge. And then how you share that knowledge is up to you. If you're photogenic and you like to get on live shows like this, do that. If you're a little more introverted and reserved, maybe a weekly blog or infographics. I will say those are kind of going away. Video is taking over, but still there's an opportunity there if you're knowledgeable to share that knowledge in a way that people find compelling.
And so, Jeannie, I feel personally attacked for this comment. Thank you. Some people are made for audio, so I appreciate you coming at me like this. But it's right in line, Alan, what we're talking about.
Right.
There are different platforms for different people. There are different places people go and they enjoy things differently. Yep. Some people are like Jeannie is hanging out right now for a few minutes watching us live. A bunch of other people are going to listen to the audio only podcast of this that comes out next week because they like to do it while they're shopping or out driving around or whatever they're doing. Right. So these different places are where people are hanging out where they want to hang out.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, if it's audio centric, if it's written word centric,
Right.
if video centric, they have all these places to go. And so I think you're right, and I'll echo it. Local pros need to figure out what they enjoy doing and play there.
Right. And then I would add to that, if you feel like you're the type of person that maybe doesn't have the skills or the time, there's a whole new emerging industry, which you've heard the word. As soon as I say the word, everyone's going to roll their eyes and think it's just for fashion. But the notion that there's this creator economy going on where influential people, so we call them influencers in the digital space, they're producing content already for you. So if you feel like you can't do that, you're not going to do live shows, it's not your cup of tea, you can align yourself with people who are doing that. And, you know, if it's a realtor and you're a loan officer, you could work in tandem. You can promote their stuff. They can promote your stuff, vice versa. So there are ways to get your name and brand out there, even if you don't like to produce content.
You know, I love that, Alan, and I'll add a little flavor to it because I would joke all the time that if back in 2004, 2005, when really the real estate community was the game, there was no social media like this. You know, and I had loan officers all the time would tell me, "Hey, I'm not going to go after realtors. You know, it's not my thing." And they would go off ancillary, like, you know, divorce attorneys, financial planners, and I'd be like, "That's fine. Those people definitely can refer you customers, but that's not the biggest river.
Right.
That's not where the actual action's flowing. You know, that's a trickle.
Right.
So you'll never really hit it." And now I actually feel the same way about social media, video. You know, this is the biggest river right now, and if you refuse to play in it, I like your comment. Go partner with somebody that is.
Mm-hmm.
But I also would encourage people that are listening to this that it's a skill set, just like anything else. And you don't need to be super charismatic. I know tons of comedians that are dry as a piece of bark,
right?
And yet they're super famous because their style lands for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to add to that, it doesn't even have to be super high quality. If you're thinking, like a television show, a lot of what actually resonates on the internet is authentic and transparent content. So, we're all working from home right now. People have dogs barking and kids coming into the rooms and things like that. You don't need to be afraid of all of that either, because again, we would assume everyone listening here, we're all professionals, right? We all know something about our industry. We all have a particular point of view. We've been in this business quite a while. Share your point of view. People will appreciate that. You can even just do it via comments. So we have this podcast, I think earlier this week, you guys posted it on LinkedIn, right? And you can make comments against other people's content. So if you have a realtor group that you're friendly with and you notice they make great videos, go comment on those videos. Give them props, say something educational. You'll get traffic as a result.
So let's kind of go this direction for a little bit here. Let's say that we've got loan officers who understand this or hearing this, who are starting to make content consistently. But in my opinion, some of that's lining up with like a brand play. They're building some face recognition. They're building some brand recognition with their own brand with consumers. But now you get the infamous, well, should I boost my post? Right. I mean, no, this is like, because you start playing and then that's the question. Millions of times, should I boost my post? Because now they're trying to say, well, should I start actually digitally marketing, like paying money, investing money? How do you answer that?
Well, Facebook and Google, who own really arguably, the biggest platforms, are not nonprofit organizations. So end of story. If you post content organically, you're not going to make much headway. It just won't happen because they want you to spend money. So you do need to invest in the platform. Now, you need to be thoughtful, obviously, but you absolutely need to boost, or there are other tactics, even taking your content and turning it into advertisements, which is a slight nuance, but it's an important nuance because you can do more with ads than you can do with boosting. But you definitely need to invest in your brand building on the paid side. You can complement that with hard work. And like I said, going out and commenting on other people's content will drive traffic back to your social channels. So that is free, but a lot of time and effort. But ultimately, paid advertising is why Facebook and Google are so big. They collect that as a toll, and you need to pay it.
So how do you coach somebody through like the basics of this? What to start looking at? How to understand this? Because, like let's take a loan officer who's licensed in California.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to boost in Texas. They can't even do loans in Texas.
Right.
So maybe not pushing the button is so effective. How do you just generally, on a very high level, what do you tell somebody?
Yeah, well, so all advertising can be targeted, all advertising. And so you can narrow down your targeting, whether it's by geographic area. You can even get so close as to, some of the tricks of the trade. We monitor people who, for example, everyone who goes into a Home Depot. We have data on everyone who goes into a Home Depot every day. True Value, Lowe's, all of the hardware stores. We find that very interesting signal because people who are going into Home Depot and who are homeowners, we like for obvious reasons.
Hold on, because you said something that just is too impactful. How do you know people are going into Home Depot?
So within the ad tech world, there is a whole lot of data about people. And among the many data sets, and this is always changing. In fact, it's going to have a big change coming up when Apple does their iOS 14 and release here shortly. However, up to now, it has been available to us a mobile device ID. And when your phone calls out to the internet, when you're in Home Depot, it picks up and sends out a signal of its device. And we pick that up, and various partners we use to get that data. So that's one way you can do things, so targeting. So it doesn't even have to be in your hometown. It could literally be in a very tight radius right around an elementary school. Say that you serve as a realtor or a loan officer, a very small community. You want to target just that community. You can get very niche in how you target.
See, but this is where everybody now the conspiracy theorists come out and like, oh, you're tracking me, you're using cell phones to track me, and how do I turn that off? But they're not paying attention to these macro trends. Like a normal loan officer has to understand this is what's available to the world out there.
Correct. Yeah. Now, and to your point, I mean, that is what LendingTree's doing. That's what Quicken's doing. That is what the big players are doing. And as we talked about before, if they're doing that, they're going to reach your consumer before you are. And so you need to at least be aware of it if you don't want to try to compete against it.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is what I was really wanting to talk about today is you really have to be aware of it.
You really have to.
And it's not a good strategy for success.
Right.
Pretending like it's not happening is not a good strategy. I mean, I'll ask people, Alan, and you might find this interesting, like loan officers in our new hire orientation, how many times do they get referred a customer from their agent? And then all of a sudden, how many, as a percentage, how many of their customers already have a rate quote or a pre-qual?
Mm-hmm.
So like, they come down, they get the realtor, they get referred to Alec, and I talk to them, and then all of a sudden they are as a percentage. And most people are like, it's high. It's like 80%, 90%. And then there's those several loan officers who are like, it's a zero. Never happens. And I'm sitting here like, you didn't even get a chance to talk to the customer. That's what happened.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, between, some of the major trends we've talked about here today, targeting is one of them. Automation is another. And the big boys, between the time that consumer met that realtor and that realtor referred them to you, let's say a couple of days have gone by. That is an eternity on the internet. If you've given a guy like me a signal that you're interested in a mortgage, within seconds, literally seconds, we are already running ads on Facebook to that person saying you should click here and come talk to us. We are running probably if they've given us any data, like they've come over and actually put in their name and email, they have gotten us SMS text, they have gotten a voicemail, they have gotten an email that will get a series. They've gotten ads run to them in every channel that they're on. So within minutes, they're back on Facebook or Instagram. We're running ads to them. So that's what's happening in the deep battle. And so if you're just waiting around to call them in, say 8 hours after you get done working all day, closing loans, which is the typical life, we've probably hit your consumer, maybe 10 or 15 times that day.
Yeah, you're screwed.
It's crazy. So that's why I say, that's the ad targeting game, and it is a deep and old game. The good news here for everyone listening is it's also, as you mentioned, with privacy coming, to the forefront, it is an old game. And the newer game, building a dam, as we've talked about, building your brand, will be a great defense against that, because the best way to avoid all of that mess is to get a relationship with a consumer early on, because they trust you, because they've watched your page or they've seen some content you've produced and they have an affinity for you. Then they might ignore a guy like me. So that's good for you.
That's what I want everyone to hear. And it's so funny. So I went to breakfast this morning, got out of the house. The kids were insane. Ran into today, and a guy at the table next to me, kind of looks over and saw my Loan Depot mask. And, he's like, are you Alec? And I'm like, what's up? And so this is my buddy, Justin, who we know on social media, but I bumped into him at the local, Greasy Spoon diner this morning.
Right.
And so to your point, our opportunity to use the internet to build some kind of relationship with people at scale
Mhm.
is a defense against these advertisements that are coming at them fast.
Absolutely. In fact, so you just mentioned Justin. He just put a comment in your podcast. He's now on my radar. Potentially, our mesh comes together where my social network now meets his social network. So together, we're stronger. My listeners, my followers trust him more.
Yep.
His trust me more. So we've built more trust. So when an ad from Quicken, say, just pops into the stream, maybe our folks are less likely to click it because they think the three of us or the four of us who've built a little ecosystem, are more trustworthy. So that's absolutely.
I mean, this is what I want people to take away from today's podcast is to wake up, to realize what's happening. I mean, Alan's basically telling you that these advertisers like him know everything about you, what you're doing, when to hit you, when to say like this person is in a buy cycle, like right now, hit them on that's why those, we know in a microcosm, like we've seen the retargeting ads, right? Like I mentioned, like sandals, and then like the next day there's like sandals on every ad hitting me in the face. So we know what's happening, but it's just fascinating to understand the real war that these big companies are doing and what you need to do to defend against it, to build consistency and influence with somebody so that they ignore that stuff, because it's not going to stop.
Right. Yeah. That's not going to stop. And but the good news is, the trend is your friend there, because I think the world is moving to a more social place, a more transparent place. The consumers are looking for, and this is the other thing that I think a lot of B2B people or folks that maybe aren't so passionate about consumer advertising don't recognize, is the consumer is getting trained every day. Every day they're on Target. Every day they're at Amazon. I mean, right now, right, if you and I hit an order, or if we were on our Instagram feed, in our feed, those ads for sandals, you click on it, PayPal would pop up and say, you want to pay for this? If you hit one button, Amazon would deliver those sandals maybe that day.
Yep. So
that's your experience as a consumer. Fast, perfectly executed, great brands. And then they come over to, a real estate site or a loan officer site, and you don't get back to them for 8 hours. I mean, 2 days maybe.
Alan, to echo what you said earlier, if they go to a lending tree or to a Zillow, everyone knows about it.
Yeah.
So they get referred to me. That's great, but everyone else knows too, and they're all coming after them.
Yeah, 15 different referrals, and they've gotten 45 phone calls in the first 30 seconds. I mean, no, I don't want to pick on anyone in particular, but the very large mortgage company you mentioned, I actually did a test with them, and they changed the gender of the person leaving the voicemail back and forth between a woman and a man to determine whether or not women or men leaving messages work better with your leads. I mean, that's very sophisticated, and you're not going to compete with that kind of thing.
And we're just sitting here not calling them back because we're at lunch.
Yeah, we're busy working. We're closing a loan. I mean, so that's why for me, and what we advise clients is, let the tools that are built to do that do the work for you. Chatbots are wonderful to keep engagement with your consumers. It's not something you have to then do. You can hire teams, our team or any team, to kind of take the work off of engaging in social channels, so you don't have to be the one personally responding to comments. So there are a lot of things you can do to stay in the game without, while you still have a job.
Well, so let me ask you this too. What are you working on right now that you're excited about? Like, what are the trends you're seeing? What are you like? Yes, this is what I'm pumped to play in this space right now. What's going on currently?
Yeah, I think the two biggest trends I see, chatbots are getting very interesting because of their connective tissue. They can do so much now. We can answer not only questions that the consumer has, but we can trigger various automations in the ecosystem. So we can send signals over to your CRM. We can even, send links out for the 1003 attached. We can leave voicemails. So we can do all that. So the automation part of the business is really getting to the level where one person can seem like they're a 10-person staff. And that's nice. That's very exciting. The other side of it is on the video and the content side. I think with the privacy issues we talked about, the targeting and the things of that nature becoming a little more challenging, the brands and the people who can build a little brand quickly on Clubhouse, on TikTok, or some of the Instagram stories and things like that, that's an exciting area. So I think for us, it's getting pushing more content, video content in particular, out to the edges and being more automated is the two trends we're focused on.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the content game. Some people view that as needing to be like web famous, like need to be like massive brand. But how do you view it? You know, is it to reach every single person out there in the world?
Not at all. In fact, I'd say the exact opposite. The most important thing is to have passionate followers, even if you just have 100 of them. If they're passionate and they're sharing your content, if they're commenting on your content, you're winning. You know, we have influencers, you know, you can have 10,000 followers that mean nothing. They don't actually, you know, retweet your stuff or they don't interact with this. I would say focus on quality, not quantity. And I think that matches well especially in the local space. I don't know about you, but you know, we have like a Facebook page for our community. There's probably, you know, 4,000 or 5,000 houses here in my little neck of the woods. And we have a page just for this little community and we all share information. Participate on that page. If you're a realtor or a loan officer in my community and I see you there, I mean, you know, we're going to do business probably. So,
yeah, I call that staying in your lane. Like there's no need or benefit of becoming this massive influencer. First of all, you won't.
Right.
Like, you know, but instead you can be this micro influencer inside a community where, to your point, you matter.
Yeah. One easy tip. If we all live in communities. Inside of our communities, there are probably 20 different interesting areas, parks, views, restaurants, whatever it is. Spend the next 20 days going to each one of those every day, post from that location and comment about why it's cool, why this is a great view, why this is a great Thai restaurant, why this school is awesome, whatever. It's very simple content. And you know it. Who else knows that? You're sharing content about your community. So the content doesn't have to be earth-shattering. It just has to be original, and you have to do it from a position of expertise, which we all are in our local areas.
So let's kind of wind down with this. Let's go back to the thread a little bit of these big dogs and what they're doing, building these dams. How are they trying to keep that customer away from what I would call their competitor, whether that's me, a local guy, or it's their other big brands that are out there? What are they trying to do to keep them away? How do they build a dam that stops them?
Yeah, the good news is in our industry, most of them are not very good at building dams. We haven't seen really a Zillow for mortgage, if you think about it. Quicken's good, but they're great at the older tactic of just staying in front of people with advertisements. And you see that in Super Bowl ads all the way down to their web ads. So they haven't even really built too much of a dam. So most of them are focused on omni-channel, staying in touch with their customer continuously, evergreen stuff, whether it's on connected TV. You know, these days you can now buy television ads directly to Alec.
Yeah.
Not any longer do you have to buy the whole channel. So again, the same tactic we did on the internet is now on internet TV because most of us are now watching YouTube TV or Sling. We're not watching cable. So now we can target people. So that's where Quicken's money is focused in the big boys. They're focused really on trying to stay with multiple touch points and connected with their consumers all the time so that they don't lose them to you.
Yep. That's a wild world, dude. It blows my mind because we know we're being tracked. We know there's analytics around us. We know, Alexa's listening. And yet it's fascinating to watch it break down like this. It's adding urgency to me. Mm-hmm. I'm not even originating anymore actively these days, but urgency of like that lead, that speed to lead. Because if you got a lead from a realtor, chances are the whole world already knows this person's buying a mortgage.
Oh, certainly. If the lead came through the big engines like Tree or Zillow, I mean that's game over. As you know, with the call center shops that are in the thousands of people, their speed to call is insane, and you don't want to play in that space. What you want to do, what we actually work with a lot of branch offices and smaller shops, is you want to originate your own, just like you do with your realtors, and they're still a wonderful source of leads. But I would just encourage you to digitally work with them. Don't just meet them at the coffee shop, but follow all of their pages, or maybe recommend that you do joint content together. So there's a lot of things you can do with your realtor network as it is, helps them help you. But it also starts to build that dam up. But you've got to get with shows like this or with content that you produce, you've got to get something out to the consumer before they get into that big meat grinder, because otherwise it is a big battle that you're not going to win on.
So if a loan officer is sitting down in front of you and they're just figuring this game out, like they've whether they're brand new or they're traditional and they've had years of experience, but they're now waking up, how do you tell them to start?
Yeah, I like to do an audit. That's what I call it. Just first off, just write down all of your points of presence. Do you have a Facebook page? Do you have an Instagram page? Do you have a TikTok page, LinkedIn page, Twitter page? You can go through the list, YouTube page. The answer may be no, and that's fine. Or maybe yes, or you don't haven't focused. But figure out what you have. Figure out and think about if a consumer were to interact with any of those points of presence, would you know about it? And that's not a simple question. Like if I leave you a comment on your YouTube channel, do you know about it? And I mean that in like a real meaningful business way. Of course, we can all log in and see if there's a comment there, but will you in your busy day, do you have anything that's telling you or helping you out automation wise to talk to your consumers? Because otherwise the first thing you do, you're going to drown in your own comments, and you're going to be like, I can't answer those comments while I'm, trying to get this loan application process. So make sure you have either people or processes, hopefully technology in place to kind of handle the building of the relationships. But that's where I would say, and then it all comes down to good marketing. What do you offer the world that's unique? And how would you like to share that? Which of those channels and tactics makes the most sense for you personally? If you're not a video guy, then yeah, maybe YouTube's not your thing. Maybe Twitter is your thing, or maybe another channel, maybe Clubhouse or whatever. So that's kind of where I would start. Go through a little bit of an audit, kind of get a sense of where you're at and where you'd like to be.
I love the concept of the audit. I love the concept of that question of, are you aware if somebody is engaging with you?
Right.
That to me is like a aha moment for this conversation, because I guarantee you that either number one, they don't have any of that stuff going on. They don't have a YouTube. They don't have, number
Right.
two is they do, but they are not in the game, meaning they're just posting, but somebody comments, they have no clue who commented or when.
Right. Yeah. A lot of people are still, I see a lot of folks who, even big offices, big producers, they think they have a website, and they're like, well, maybe the consumer coming to you look at their data and you're like, nobody's coming to your website. No one's going to come to your website. But yet I go into your Facebook page and there's a comment from 5 days ago and you haven't even gotten back to them. They're like, oh yeah, we don't monitor that and I'm like, well, so that's the game. And I would only focus on that. We call that engagement in our space. I wouldn't worry about leads yet. I would first and foremost try to build your audience, build your engagement, and make sure that you have the tools in place and with which to engage those consumers. So if they leave a comment, you're leaving a comment back, whether it's a chatbot doing that or yourself or a team member. Make sure that you're building engagement. Later, it's just like building up an email list. In the old days, we would build up the email list, then we monetize it. Now you're building up a social audience, and then later you can monetize that. Ask them to fill out a lead form or come talk to you.
It sounds like through all these things, you're, unless you want to correct me, you're saying that it's almost non-negotiable. You have to be on social media.
And the only caveat, yes, the only, unless you were really, really plugged in with a whole group of influential people, you could maybe take a back seat to their awesomeness on social. That would be the only exception. But otherwise, you better, because the first thing consumers do, first thing anyone does when they see Alec Hansen is they go Google you to find your social channels and check you out. And they want to see how big you are. They want to see if they should listen to you, if you're an important person. And then they, unfortunately or fortunately, depends on your point of view, we use social media to judge the credibility of the people we're about to do business with.
It's nice to have somebody smart who actually does digital marketing just say these words, because I feel those in my soul. I feel like that's the truth. I know that's happening to our customer. Our customers are doing that to us and to our loan officers. And so it's just wonderful, because here's the deal, and I guarantee this is true too. If they go search Alec Hansen mortgage to look me up while they're talking to me, they just put in the magic word mortgage. And I guarantee if they click on my sites or they click on my Loan Depot website, somebody else is going to know, hey, this guy's looking around at mortgages. And then the agency is kicking up behind it and going after this guy.
Right. Yeah. And so, building up your presence points and making sure that you're timely and you're educational and you're building, it's like you're talking about, you're building your brand. It's very, very important. I would say it's absolutely critical.
Dude, that's it. That's Alan. Thank you for today, man. I value this conversation. It's the first one for our digital marketing segment. So it's perfect because, you have all this experience in the world, and it's just great for local pros to hear what's really going on in the world out there. So you have any final comments for LOs out there who are listening?
Well, I would just encourage everybody, because it can be daunting. You can do it, and there are people to help. You don't have to, boil the ocean. think small, think local. Like I said, maybe make 20 posts on your local community. Get started. Just get started is what I would say.
Love it, bro. Thank you, guys. Hey, everybody. Thank you for hanging out with us on the Modern Lending Podcast. We actually have another one coming up this afternoon because I'm bad at calendaring and scheduling. So, Alan, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And we'll see you guys next time on the next episode of the Modern Lending Podcast.